In a project environment, we find all sorts of competing power. So in this video, I want to answer the question, what is power? Power is the ability to act upon some need or to do something. It's the capability to accomplish something that you want to do. And of course, in the workplace and on a project, it's the ability to get other people to do what you want them to do. The problem on projects is that we often talk about project managers as having responsibility without power. We need to get people to do things, but we don't have the power to require them to do things. So it's very important that we understand the ways in which you do and do not have power, and importantly, the ways in which other people may have power on our projects. And the model I'm going to draw from for this video comes from John French and Bertram, who articulated their model of social power bases in the late 1950s. Their idea was that all power arises from the social interactions between people. Power doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is all as perceived by one person about another. They identified a number of power bases. I'm going to suggest 8 great examples of power bases to you. Many of them were in their original work, some of them were not. The first 4 that I'm going to give you arise from your status in the world, and the first is the obvious one. It's called legitimate power, but we can equally call it hierarchical power. It's the power that you have through your place in whatever hierarchy within which you sit. In the project terms, as the project manager, you are at the top of the team of people who are delivering the project. That gives you some legitimate power. But above you sits your project sponsor, your senior responsible officer, your project board, your steering group, or whatever. They have more legitimate power than you, which means they can instruct you to do or to not do certain things. The problem, of course, with legitimate power is there's always somebody who has more power than you. The next form of power is reward power, and it often goes hand in glove with legitimate power. Reward power is the power that we have to offer people rewards. But of course, you don't need any legitimate power at all. You can have any status at all within your organisation and still be able to say thank you to somebody for doing something for you. And that thanks, well meant, genuinely offered, is of course a reward. But if you have the ability to offer even greater rewards by doing favours for people, by offering them incentives, then that gives you correspondingly greater levels of power. At its toxic level, of course, this is just bribery. And of course, the opposite of bribery, it's coercion. It's the ability to force somebody to do something. It's blackmail. And if you have the power to make somebody to do something, then you have the third form of power base, coercive power. I would argue that coercive power gets toxic very easily. Even if you have the legitimate power to require a junior person within your organisation to do something. If you need to rely on coercive power, then you're probably very weak, pretty much all of the other power bases. The fourth of the power bases that arise from your status in the world is resource power. Have you ever wondered why some secretaries feel so powerful when, if you look at their position objectively, they don't have a lot of status in the organisation, they probably don't have a lot of remuneration. But what they do have is the ability to control your access to their boss. They're a gatekeeper. The person who has the keys to the stationery cupboard, or the store master who minds the stores for the organisation, they have access to resources that you need, and therefore they have resource power. Anybody who has access to something you need has that resource power. We'll come back to this in a minute. But the final four sources of social power arise from the investments that we make in ourselves. And to pick up on the resource power where we left off, the fifth power base is information power. Information is a kind of resource, I guess, so we could have gathered it under resource power, but I think it is different because whereas an organization grants you your resource power by giving you the keys, you grant yourself the information power by learning stuff. But of course, information power isn't as important in the modern world as it perhaps used to be, because the internet means we all have huge amounts of access to huge amounts of information all of the time. What we need, though, in order to make good use of it is expert power. Because an expert is someone who can interpret and use information effectively. And again, expert power comes from the investment we make in ourselves. It is far more important than information power because the expert can generate their own information by testing and investigating. And critically, I may not be able to use information that an expert can use because I don't understand it properly. The next power base is the definition of a social power base. It's connection power. It is my ability to connect with other people. If I can draw upon other people's support, their guidance, their backup in times of conflict, then I have connection power. If you think about this in terms of the playground, if you're going to try and bully me with your coercive power, and I've got a bunch of friends who are going to stand behind me, I can resist that. And that's the power of connections. So, what is the eighth power base? The last, and to my mind, the most important power base. It's what French and Raven called referent power. Referent power because it is the power that comes from the person to whom it refers. It is better labelled in the modern world as personal power. It is the power from within you. It is your character, your personality. It is who you are, your integrity, your commitment. It is the sum total of all of your qualities as a human being. If you have deep levels of personal power, and all the trappings of organisational power bases like your position in a hierarchy and your ability to coerce and to reward and your access to resources, there is nothing. People will follow people. And they won't follow people just because of their place in a hierarchy or their ability to reward. They will look up to certain people. As a project manager, this is about your expertise, your integrity, your commitment, your passion, your personality, your depth of character. Develop your personal power because this is the one form of power that all project managers need. Please do give us a thumbs up if you like this video. There'll be loads more great project management videos to come, so please do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of them. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.